what you say matters. Patients want to hear what we have to say. They did a study during the health reform debate, and they asked patients, who do you trust the most when it comes to health policy? Doctors, the media, politicians, health policy experts. Doctors came first. Patients still trust us, and they want to hear what we have to say. Doctors may not agree on how to best reform our health system, but I think it's important that we express our views, because the bottom line for every doctor is that we want better care for our patients. And I think that means engaging mainstream media. Social media is all well and good, but relatively few sees blogs, Twitter, and Facebook. We need to speak to mainstream media. As of today, they're still the major voice. We need to get on that platform. So I was talking to Mike Sevilla. He is a family physician in Ohio, and he's otherwise known as Dr. Anonymous. And he has an internet radio show that he runs every week, and he interviews health personalities. So he uses social media presence to make the jump to mainstream media. His local television station features him and interviews him, where he talks about patient education, where he talks and gives his opinion on various medical issues. So I asked Mike, I was talking to him last week, how did you make that jump? And he said something pretty compelling. He said, social media prepares doctors for mainstream media. I think that's completely true. I didn't have any media training in medical school. You know how I learned how to write an op-ed? I Googled how to write an op-ed. I used that, my blog writing skills, and now I have a platform in USA Today where I can talk to millions of readers. It's imperative that we connect with mainstream media, and I think social media gives you the foundation to do so.
All right. So I guess the other thing is that you're obviously on the Undercover Medical Economics, and every week you're on the local television show. And I think that's a great example of really bridging the gap between what you do on social media and going to mainstream media. So I guess, could you offer any tips for docs who are interested in doing that same thing? Because I think that it's great what we're doing, speaking to an audience of thousands, but really when you get on television and speaking to an audience of hundreds of thousands to millions, I think that really can increase our influence, and you do a great job educating patients. So how do you, what kind of tips can you give doctors if they were interested in speaking on a larger stage?
I think it's just getting out and doing it, and I really feel passionate about what I'm going to say is that social media really has prepared me for traditional media. And what I mean by that is that, just all these years of writing blog posts really taught me to kind of craft what I'm trying to say, especially just like your previous question is, I don't have a lot of time. So it's taken me all these years to really craft what I'm going to say to get to a point where, I don't have to, or I feel comfortable just sending it out and not micromanaging everything I write. As far as for speaking, my podcast, my live podcast really has prepared me to do the live television work that I'm doing right now, because when I started before, I did pre-recorded podcasts. I didn't like them. I didn't like how they sounded. They didn't feel genuine to me. There's something for me, just going on live and just having everything recorded, which is kind of a microcosm of social media, is really kind of taught me to talk in the soundbite and say, when I go on television, even though I look great, I have 2 minutes to get these 4 bullet points out. And I know that the anchor is going to push me or ask me, a question to get me off track. But I know that especially when you're doing television work, pretty much, you don't get any kind of random question. Either they give me the topic or I give them the topic. And before I go in there, I tell myself, these are the 4 points that I'm going to talk about. And whatever question they ask, I'm going to tell them the 4 points, and I think that's what I learned from like political media work too, is that, whatever question they ask you, spin them back to what your message is.
Stick to your talking points. That's right. Yeah.
Stick to your talking points, and just to do it. I did a lot of local stuff before I got on television. Yeah, I spoke at community organizations, and I did awful there. I did awful PowerPoint presentations. I learned from my mistakes, and so what I tell docs is that you're not going to be perfect first time out, but you got to do it. And I remember when you came on my show the first time, I asked you about writing letters to the editor, and you're like, well, go to this website and just write them. So I wrote them, and the first one were pretty bad, but as time goes on, you get better and you get better and you get better. And I know docs just want to go out there and look professional from the start. It's like anything else. I mean, it's you have to keep doing it, and you have to keep practicing it. You're not going to be perfect, especially when it comes to advocacy, and because I tell docs this all the time. The 2012 election is going to be right around the corner. Docs are going to have to, talk to, representatives and Congress people about, what is important to us. And we're only going to get X number amount of minutes. It may not even be with the congressman. It may be with their staff members, who's more important. But these are the talking points. You got to practice to do it. So what I tell docs is just do it. You're going to mess up the first time, but as time goes on, you're going to get better.
Absolutely. I think what you said at the beginning, social media preparing you for mainstream media. That's a key point, especially for my blog writing, preparing me to write my columns in USA Today and New York Times and my local papers on CNN.com. And I wouldn't have had that experience if I didn't write blog posts. In fact, a lot of my columns and op-ed pieces they start as blog posts. So I think if there's one take-home message, is that for doctors who are interested in speaking on a larger platform, is that social media really does give you the foundation to move on to bigger platforms.